large to rightfully be called a sword. It was larger, thicker, heavier, and cruder than any normal blade. By all accounts, it was no more than a hulking mass of iron.
What's up, everybody? It is your favorite and most glamorous fighter, if I don't say so myself, Doc, the level 12 fighter with the passion to conquer and destroy the evil lich. Over there, just doing his nails, getting a pedicure done.
Ooh.
Mr. Lich Brill, how's that pedicure going?
Hi. It's going very well. I'm very happy about it. The kobold that I was forcing to do it is now, I think, going to live. I haven't decided quite yet, but so far so good.
Well,
how are you today?
I'm doing well. You know, the thing about pedicures is we often associate that with the thing that women do. But
right.
Honestly, like having your feet worked on, having your hands worked on, there's something that's very intricate and very soothing about that process.
Oh, it's downright decadent.
Yeah, I haven't like had my nails done like painted and stuff like that, but like, I mean, just having your nails and feet just like, you know, massaged and soothed and tuned up. Yeah, it's great, man. Like
be fondled,
like,
be enjoyed.
Listen to the gentleman of the podcast, right? Listen to me. Take care of yourself. Wash your face. Take care of your skin. Massage your, hands and feet. Take care of those little things because it's taking a load off, man. It feels great. It's awesome. So that's all right. Thanks for joining us for this episode.
Have a good one, guys.
Next week,
it would actually be funny if people like tuned in and they're like, you know what, that was actually some good advice this week.
Yeah,
they gave us some good life advice.
Yeah,
they didn't actually give us the whole spiel, pomp and circumstance. Yeah, rah rah, shish boomba kind of thing. They just decided to go with something very soothe. Relaxing, give us the tips.
Yeah.
Hey guys, here's how here's how you get through life. Here's what you do on a Tuesday.
Well, really, it plays into this bigger thing where we're talking about how people need to make themselves the very best of themselves, right?
Like no one ever was.
And gotta catch them all. And some of these people take this in an extreme and certain play styles while playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Right.
It may not necessarily be like doing your nails or like getting your feet rubbed or anything. I'm talking about getting your stats sorted, getting your racial bonuses and class abilities boosted up. I'm talking about power gamers.
Oh, you see where I come from, it goes by a different name.
Oh yeah, what's that?
We don't call them that.
Okay.
We call them big number Neanderthals. That's what we call them. It's these cave people that show up to the table and I'm like, hi, how are you? And they go, don't want to roll the biggest dice. And you're like, oh, that's okay. Well, you could have flaws. It's like, no flaws. Biggest dice, biggest number. And that's basically the crux. What it is, because you can be a power gamer in two senses. You can be a power gamer in the mathematical sense, and you can be a power gamer in the sense of role playing, and they usually go hand in hand, in my opinion.
I kind of agree with you, but I think that what you're touching on is kind of the associated stereotype for the power gamer, right?
Oh, I only speak in stereotypes.
Yeah, that's the problem with being a lich. It just everything molds together.
Oh yeah.
Now, I have met some power gamers. I actually had a power gamer in our group, Tyler. And Tyler's a great guy. Hey, shout out to Tyler. He recently got engaged. Love you, buddy. And Tyler, I'm in a good mood, man. I'm in a great mood.
I love the idea of a power gamer getting engaged where he like jumps out of a plane like, I need to give her the ring the best way I can. Slays 10 dudes, punches her ex, does the whole Scott Pilgrim thing, runs up to her, gets on one knee like, Milady, I have the ring for you. By the way, Tyler sounds great, but I just had to. The idea is too funny.
Well, and Tyler got a ring.
The most DPS.
He's not just performing ceremony that gives you +1 AC. It's giving you +2. That's the extent of which he's doing.
Oh, it's a legendary item. Oh, yes.
Yep. But no. But the thing is that Tyler was all about finding ways to use mechanics to the best possible ability and how to match up his stats to his class and to his racial abilities and all that stuff to be the most effective at what he wanted to do possible. And there is an element of that that's really admirable, and there's a way that he did it that's really good. And I think that there's a way that people do power gaming that is very good and that's still fun for everyone at the table and is not ridiculous and it's not game breaking. But there is that thought when you say power gamer, there's that initial when you hear that, because it's like, power gamer, that's the guy who like breaks the game for selfish reasons and wants to break every plan that you have, right?
Right. But it's not only the idea of breaking the game in the sense of mechanically. Like I said, I do believe there's two breeds and then the hybrid. You have people who will break the game mechanically, and when they break game mechanically, they go through this process of doing deep lore dives and complicated math problems and really sussing out as a mathematician, how do I make the most dice go click clack? Right. But in doing so, that can usually go awry a lot of ways. In my opinion, and this is just my opinion, power gamers and mid-maxers have this, I guess you should say, when is this going to go off the rails quality, right? When, not if, when. Because unless they do kind of what you just said about your friend, unless they are open in communication, which is the answer to all of life's problems half the time, which is just like, hey guys, let's stop lying. Let's just tell each other what's going on. If that person can admit to themselves, I want to roll the dicey doos and I want to be the biggest, baddest mofo with the most amount of yada yadas and slay the biggest out of blah, 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 blah. If they can do that, then I feel like there's a much better way to go about playing with them. If they can't, then it's a ticking time bomb. Because you have a person who's so focused on making sure the dice will roll and that they will have the most stuff done that they can outshine other players, that they can yell at other players for playing wrong. Heard that 1,000 times. There's a lot of ways for it to implode. And that's the math side. On the role-playing side, you have the guy who makes the character that his background makes him, what is it from Fairly Odd Parents? Impervious to magic. He's just perfect. He's perfect in every way somehow. And then you have the hybrid of the two where the math guy was tired of being called a bad role player and the role player was tired of saying that he's bad at math, and he tries to merge the two to make Goku, essentially. But the problem is, it becomes the Superman problem. If you go down that road, which is how do you tell a story that's compelling about a person with no flaws? Which, by the way, the answer to that is you make kryptonite. Like you make a flaw. So the problem that it all culminates is, while you're right, I do believe that there are those rare unicorns that walk amongst us that are power gamers who have communicated and been very accepting about who they are and do things well. I also believe that there are horror stories that we can all tell about players and sometimes power DMs. That will just nuke a game. And I think, I know we're going to come back to it, and I'm probably going to say it again. I think communication is the best way to avoid this outcome. Because if you have a party of all role players, and there's
are you saying that in a game about communicating and saying what you want to do and just everything's happening through communication, that communication is the way to resolve things, like good communication? Is that what you're saying?
Oh, yes. But I do want to mention, here's the curveball, though. Here's the catch-22. Is the fact that Dungeons and Dragons is the nerdiest activity, and awkwardly it's also the activity that needs the most social grace behind it, which is incredible, because most nerdy activities, frankly, you can do a lot of them by yourself, hidden away, and you don't actually have to, learn social cues. Instead, you can just lie in your little toxic bubble, and if anybody goes past, you screech or something. This is the only place where you need to merge all the nerdy stuff that you're probably used to with actual communication and being a functioning human. And in every other nerdy activity, those things don't normally go hand in hand. So suddenly you have this horrible, like this just troll that emerges from the just comes out of his WoW session, and he's like, "Ugh, what do you mean I'm playing with girls?" Like it can get really It can go really nuclear. And again, the answer to it, like we just said, is that positive, affirming communication.
So I think this would actually be a really good episode to talk about, and we won't dive into that now, but just an unsponsored plug. If like this is something that really has changed my life, becoming more emotionally intelligent, and it also is something that has improved my game as a DM and as a player dramatically.
The Book of Mormon.
No, emotional intelligence. So we can talk about that sometime. I think that would be a great topic.
Absolutely.
But in case if you want to, jump to the chase on that, just go to like a bookstore or, look online wherever you get your books. Look at Emotional Intelligence 2.0. It comes with a quiz that you can take online, and it tells you where you are with your own emotional intelligence. And then you're able to kind of dive into that, read the book, and then you take a test after you've practiced these steps in the book and things like that, and it shows how you've grown.
Oh, and that terrifies me.
I know, but like I'm telling you, dude,
it sounds good.
It improved my work life, it improved my personal life, it improved my marriage, it improved my game.
Wow!
Like I'm serious when I say that it changed my life.
When I say I'm terrified, it's because that I have a terrifying like dual sides of me, where I do believe that I am a rather functioning human being.
But that's a minor illusion.
I'm still that person that if pain is caused to anyone, it's the funniest thing that ever happened. Like it's really bad. I mean, you really should see me in a funeral. I am just holding back aggressive giggles and every like funeral and somber thing, because I'm thinking of 20 things when I'm walking up to the casket. Like, oh, look at her, she finally stopped talking. It's really hard. And so there's always a bit of me just like, you're so empathetic, you're so nice, and then there's the little bit of my brain that's like, you're a freaking psychopath. You're dangerous. So if I take a test, I'm worried that the test will just come back like just a red page that says no. And I'm like, oh.
Oh, that's beautiful. No, I love that. So swinging it back to power gamers, right? Let's talk about this. We talked a little bit at the beginning here about like what a power gamer is. You mentioned, and I think that this narrows it down concisely, you're limiting your weaknesses to the point where they basically don't exist and making your strengths so powerful that they can feel overpowering to other people. Would you say that that's a bad power gamer?
I think that's a very general term, because again, if a person came up to me and they said, this is the kind of game I want to play in, then I would be far more willing to deal with it. I actually have dealt with quite like it comes to the point where there's these terminology where people go, you are an X in any fandom. And those X terms are usually the terms that mean you are the bad type of fan. You are the bad type of player. You're the bad type of this. I think, again, it comes down to a certain form of honesty. But min-maxing is something that I know a lot of players do, like a microdose, where people will go to, well, I didn't min-max all my stats, but I just really wanted to make sure that I had the best kind of charisma, and then I had this awesome weapon, and I can get that to a point. It's the power gamer that says, I'm going to make sure this is all-encompassing and making sure that everything in all its forms and angles work to a common goal. And that common goal is exactly what you said, making sure that strengths are pushed and weaknesses are nil to nothing. And if you go to your DM and you say that, like, this is what I want, you usually can be able to work with a DM, even though a DM might still try to give you that clubbed foot, give you that flaw.
Yeah, and I've seen some people with min-maxing, and generally speaking, I get it when it's like, hey, you want to match up your racial bonuses to your class abilities. That makes sense, and I probably do that, right? I'm a little bit of a min-maxer, admittedly.
Okay.
And I get that feeling where it's like, hey, like, I really want to take a feat this round, but I'm only going to take it if it has like a stat bonus to it, or, just anything like that. I've known people that that when they make characters, they get around the, hey, like you can only roll once or you can only roll twice rule by they'll just make 10 characters, right?
Right.
And then they'll store those 9 characters that they didn't get the best bonuses on in a safe, never to be found again, locked and just thrown to the bottom of the ocean. And then this 10th character is like, oh yeah, I'm running a 20, an 18, a 17, 3 15s. And yeah, that's what I rolled. And it's like, no, you didn't. You rolled like 10 characters and then you just are not using the other 9. Like, get that out of here.
I've seen entire programs where people will use it to basically find the all 18 stat character in, a couple thousand, which is insane to think about.
Yeah.
And when you actually break down the extra work that takes to either create said program or, on the flip side, find said program online, I think it shows a certain deep longing for a certain form of gameplay, which makes sense.
Yeah.
But I for one just could not see. You see, I do have to admit to being the opposite of this kind of player.
Okay.
I like playing characters with no hands. I like playing characters that is a kobold barbarian with the negative strength modifier. I like playing things like that because I find that more fun. And usually people who say, hey, I like making really flawed character, there is that pushback from actual power gamers or min-max types who will go, well, we have an actual way of gaming and you need to respect it. And it's not that I don't disrespect it. It's the fact that I know we all have seen bad train wrecks. I think that's really what it boils down to. We've all seen train wrecks behind this group or this kind of player. And we need to figure out a way to make sure that those train wrecks don't happen, because we are here to have fun, not to destroy each other's lives.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of the weird balancing act.
Right.
But I will happily admit, while you might min-max things, I do not. Yeah. That's never been my thing.
Well, and I think that you definitely have, when you get min-maxing people and power gaming people, there's a desire to be the best at something. There's a desire to be really optimum and really effective. I think that's admirable, right? And that's not always the type of game that people run in D&D. Sometimes it is, a lot of the time it isn't. And I think that that kind of mentality can short circuit some of what happens in campaigns. It can short circuit with what other people do in campaigns. It's like you said, I think I may have said this, you're minimizing your weaknesses, you're just buffing your strengths. So they're overshadowing. You definitely said that. I don't know what I'm talking about.
I'll say it. You'll say it. Someone said it. The goblin said it.
Introversion, intuition, thinking, judgment.
Yeah. So as far as like the power gaming, I've had bad experiences where someone showed up to the table, right? And they were playing a class that did have a weak stat, but it was one weak stat and it was like strength. And they were a dex-based character. And the rest were all above 14, right? There was definitely a 20 in there. There was definitely a 17 in there. And this character was really powerful. And the flaw was something that's like very job interview, where it's like, oh, I like to plan too much. Or, I'm an overzealot worker, right? Like I never know when to stop working. Man, I would just slave myself to this company, right?
Yeah. My biggest flaw, I'm too much of a servant. I'll do things unquestioned.
Yeah.
I'm loyal. That's my biggest flaw. That gets me into trouble. I'm lovable.
Yeah. And in case of if there's somebody listening to this that is like, well, what's wrong with that? Aren't you trying to play the game to your most effective level? Like, let me just tell you right now, you're not a butt. You're not some idiot, right? Here's what's happening. Joe Schmo over there just also came to this table with a character that's very similar to yours, maybe a little bit different, but maybe is sort of the same terrain. Like, let's say I said it was a dex-based character. Let's say that they're playing a ranger and you're playing, I don't know, a rogue, right? Rogues have expertise. Rogues are very common power gamey characters because you get the expertise and then that just doubles the proficiency and all of this other stuff, right? And what ends up happening in the session is that every time the ranger wants to do something, the rogue ends up doing it.
Right.
And it's like, oh, I can do that too. And then you kind of take over and it's like, okay, well, like the ranger rolled pretty well. Like they got a, 17 plus 4. But, oh, you have a plus 16 to yourself? Well, even though you rolled like a 5, I guess you rolled the same. So like you have the bigger stat bonus. So I guess, you both do it.
I guess you win.
Yeah. And you start to take away some of the moments in just trying to present yourself as like the optimum tool for every situation, right? And I think that becomes a big issue because other people want to feel special too. At least that's one thing that I've found.
Right. Well, it's also the mindset of the video game. I think new players coming in look at tabletop and they see a video game, which isn't necessarily wrong. I mean, for God's sake, we level up. Yeah. That's a very video game thing to do. But there's combat, there's some RPG elements. People who've played, like we've talked about, I believe last episode, Skyrim or 2 episodes ago. Yeah. Skyrim, Tamriel, they're going to think about leveling up to make sure that they're an archer, their bow does an extra 28 bonus, yada, yada, yada. And while that is true for video games towards that solitary thing, not only are you interacting with other people, but while there are professional DMs, it's not really professional players. Right. Professional players or people who do D&D as a living are storytellers, not the greatest of the great power gamers. Do you see where I'm coming with this? So while there might be a video game hierarchy where you could actually rise through the ranks and become the greatest player of this one thing ever, the only way you're going to get ahead as a player in D&D, if that's what you want to do with your career, which weird, man, but whatever, like it's going to have to be through storytelling. You're going to have to be a compelling actor, which is a whole different skill set. So suddenly you have this dichotomy where you have people who come to this thing going, oh, it's a video game. And then they sit down and what if their DM is like super RP heavy? Suddenly this isn't a video game. There's no Goombas to kill. What the fuck? And then you start looking at your character and you're like, oh, in a story sense, if I'm just a math lord and I'm killing it in stats, that doesn't make any sense. So characters that just show up awesome, right? Just show up level 1 dope, right? Are dumb for a lot of reasons. Number one, nothing in your backstory can ever make you that dope, usually. Unless the DM lets the background be like, you slew the evil bad guy OG. Yeah. Well, then why are you level 1? Okay, well, let's make the level higher. Let's say it's level 10 and you slew the big bad guy and you're super awesome. Okay, well, now the bad guy is going to be after you. Yep. Okay, but why? I'll kill him again. Like, it's so weird and Superman-y. And Superman had the same issue for a long time. Deadpool had the same issue. What happens? They either develop a ton of personality or there has to be new challenges that are impossible to face. Doomsday for Superman, right? There has to be kryptonite. There has to be things that will make sure there's actual stakes. Yep. And people don't like watching heroes that just show up awesome. I'm sorry, but they don't. People want to see things overcome struggle. For instance, I know I mentioned it a while ago. Any story in sports, we'll use Michael Jordan because The Last Dance is amazing. But any story in sports, are they the best when they show up? No. Are they the best when they leave? Yes. And that's the trajectory people want to watch. If you are just plateaued as the best dude ever at everything from just day one of a campaign, you are going to be not only the most boring person, but you're going to get frustrated. Yeah. Because you're going to learn that the spotlight will just start to drift away from you because naturally people will lose interest in what you're doing. So suddenly you're kind of the odd man out and nobody wants to be that in a party. You want to be together, man. You want to make a team. Absolutely. Yeah. It's very, very strange to me. Yeah. And I've seen some of this work out, right? When someone shows up to be power gaming, but I've seen it work out usually when everyone else is on board. Like if you go to a Super Smash Bros. Tourney and you've, studied the game, the meta,
the combos and the different things for how your, down B affects, this and that. You can tell that I know a lot about Smash, obviously.
Yeah, well, I'm sorry that all your elite level players are now being canceled.
Yeah.
As they should be.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, that's true. I forgot about that. Oh,
it's like all of them. It's like all of them. How is all of anyways.
Yeah, we're not going to touch that. No, sorry. That's just a mess. That is an ugly, disappointing, sad, and upsetting mess. Sorry. No, it's okay.
When you brought it up, I was just like, wow.
Shame.
Ugh.
Shame.
Bad people.
Yeah, but
bad people.
Yeah, but that is so. You show up with these new tourneys where none of these good people are, right?
Yes.
So like all of the good people are effectively gone now.
A Pong tournament.
You show up, right, and you are now the best player. You know all of the, all the tricks, the maps, everything, right? And then you just play against these kids who are like 11 years old and have picked up the game a few days ago, right? You're going to crush them. You're going to destroy these people because you've been practicing this and you know the game, right? You know the combinations, you know what works, you know what doesn't, and you're going to do what works. And you're going to win on a technical sense, but it may not be super fun for you, that you won't really have a challenge. There won't be a lot of fun from the other contestants, right?
Right.
And I'm not saying that Dungeons and Dragons is Smash Bros, right? But
it's much better.
Yes, it's so much better.
So much better.
Yeah. But there's a difference between building your character like you're about to go through Dark Souls and building your character like you're about to explore conflict and, have character development and things like that. And hey, if you want to play a game that's not about that, if you want to play a game that's about going out there and killing monsters and get loot and get money and all that stuff, then maybe that's the type of game that would be really good for.
Right.
But make sure that's the type of game that you're playing, right?
Right, and that's where the communication comes in. Because again, it's not denying a certain form of play.
Mm-hmm.
It is a certain form of play. It's also a very volatile one.
Sure.
It's one that could go awry, and it's also one type of gameplay that frankly doesn't work well with others. It's a very self-centered gameplay.
Mm-hmm.
And that in and of itself is not bad, especially when you roll up in another party full of people just like, yo, dude, I'm here to kill. I'm Superman. And everyone's like, yeah, same, bro. Like, if you can find 4 power gamers and a DM that doesn't know how to tell a story, you guys, let me tell you, you guys are going to kill God. So, good job. You're going to face Tiamat, and each of you is going to get ahead. Isn't that nice?
Yeah.
But the problem is, again, when you roll up on a party and you say, hey, or even if you start playing and you didn't really tell people how you're going to play, and you roll up and just start doing your thing and you're realizing you're with a bunch of Shakespeare nerds, it's going to get wild.
Yeah.
And this, by the way, this is for all forms of gameplay. Mm-hmm. I know we haven't really touched it, but murder hobos is a form. It is a form. It is. It's not my favorite form, but it is a form. And if you're a party of just a murder hobo squad, that jives better together than when you start having different kinds of people going, hey, I want to do this or that.
Yeah.
Now, the issue is always, well, I play this way, but the majority of my group plays the other way, and I want to play with my friends, and they're my friends.
Yes.
And in that case, then you're going to have a very open and honest conversation about what everybody wants.
Absolutely.
And probably concede some ground.
Yeah.
If you do love these people.
Mm-hmm.
Or find a new group. That's usually where it ends up.
Yeah. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Like, I mean, a couple of really good friends may just not work well together in playing Dungeons and Dragons, because it might just be an activity that you want different things out of, right? I mean, you're all different people. You're going to have different expectations. Like, I like playing Dungeons and Dragons several ways, right? I can go into power gaming mode. I can also go into all of my stats are 8s and I want to role play mode.
Okay.
But I want to be on the same page with everyone else, right? Some people want a power game, and more power to you if that's the way you want to play. Some people just want to role play, and hey, cool, you do that as well. But like you said, like you have of anything, whether you're murder hoboing people, you're playing your normal self D&D, or you're doing the power game thing, you need to communicate with the other people in your group as to how you like to play the game. Because I think sometimes you can have a little bit of all of those elements at the same time if you talk about it as a group and kind of set some boundaries to like what's acceptable and what's, off limits.
Right. I mean, communication in that regard is why things run so smoothly. And it's the reason why we use it so much is because without that, things will go bad. It just will.
Yep.
And I know some of you are saying, no, I think I can play my thing without anybody knowing, and I think I'll be able to just coast and everything will be fine. I promise you down the road that people are gossipy, people are liars, people are deceitful. And in that regard, people will start talking to each other, people drama, people have issues. And then suddenly, like 3 sessions down the road, it goes like a blur, and some chubby guy is flipping the table screaming at the DM. It happens.
Yeah.
And I know we try to keep things as positive as an outlook as we can, because this is, if anything, a self-help advice column at this point.
Yeah.
I do think there needs to be that address of, hey, problem players are out there, right? But it's not really that they're a problem player. It could be deep shit in their life, but it also could just be expectations.
Sure.
And if it's expectations, then we can try to work with that. In my party right now, the one I'm DMing, I have a majority of role players, like hard dead to rights veteran role players with voices and acting, and they're so much fun.
Cool. That's awesome.
I also have a power gamer amongst them, and I also have a murder hobo amongst them, and they know who they are.
Yep.
So the murder hobo
feel called out.
The murder hobo has to address his inner murder hoboing by turning it into kind of the devil's advocate of the party.
Sure.
The party is very sensible, and the party is very planny and not really heroes. They're frankly kind of scumbags, but they're playing good scumbags. The murder hobo just kind of wants to get the blood and loot of all NPCs it crosses.
Yeah.
Now he's suddenly got the message that not everybody loves that.
Yeah.
Doesn't really enjoy that kind of idea. And now he's trying to stay chaotic, but lean away from things that would make people immediately go, hey, why'd you kill him? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
The power gamer wants to have that dice energy.
Yeah.
And the way I've kind of handled it is just by allowing him to be, making sure that he doesn't butt up against too many other players in that regard, because none of the other players are like that. And also making sure that in encounters, which is clearly his bread and butter, he shines. Or he gets his moment to really do some damage. Yeah. Which just really means, as a DM, I add more health to the monsters. Like, at the end of the day, that's really what it means. Yeah. And I want that casual, like, meh, to be the feeling for most DMs.
Sure.
DMs, I know it's scary sometimes when you have a player that you're like, I don't know what to do with them. What the fuck am I going to do with them? And you have that panic.
Yep.
I need you to know something. Maybe you're inexperienced, but you're God. Okay. You can do anything. And if that means another monster shows up out of the woods, or the health of the monster increases, or the AC suddenly gets a little bit higher, whatever's got to happen, you can do it. Or you allow them to kill the thing, and then there's a new thing. There's a lot of ways to handle it. And I always hate it when I talk to DMs who are just like, I don't know what to do. They came in and I guess I just gave them the deck of many things, and I don't know. And I'm like, well, why'd you give it to them? And they're like, they finagled it.
I just freaked out and it just happened. Okay.
I had one idea and they beat that idea and now I'm lost. Yep. And I'm like, no, you can't just have one idea. You need to have some improv skills. And over that, even if they did, let's say, do that to you and get the thing that they shouldn't have, well, now what if someone else wants it? Now what if that thing kills them? Now what if this? Now what if that?
Yeah.
There's 1,000 ways to monkey paw a situation, bro. You can't just panic anytime things happen.
Yeah.
And I talk to DMs constantly who have that mindset of, well, my story's screwed. And I'm like, not necessarily, because guess what? They're the characters and characters lead plot. You're a DM. You're setting up dominoes.
Yeah.
You're not a storyteller. You're setting up dominoes.
Yeah.
And they're going to knock them over. Trust me. So just relax, lean back. You're doing fine. The moment you get too agitated is the moment the feeling of a table turns.
Yes. Now, if you have a power gamer at your table,
murder them.
And well,
oh, is that it?
Well, here's my thing. Here's my advice, right? Let's say, because a while back, Lich and I, when I was a meter level 2 fighter, and the Lich was merely a level 9 wizard, right? Back in the old days where, we were still learning things and stuff. We did something together, and I'm going to say the unspeakable name, the Steelmane Guild. You remember that? Do you remember that?
That's like 1,000 years ago, yes.
Yeah, I know. I don't know how I lived that long. But the Steelmane Guild was basically a West Marches campaign that we had set up, and a lot of different people at our place of schooling, our university, were going around and playing in it, right? And just kind of drop in, drop out games. It became kind of a haven for power gamers because there wasn't really a cohesive story.
Yes.
And it was kind of an opportunity for DMs to just throw stuff at the players. And honestly, we would give out magic loot and we had no way to control that from DM to DM. I literally saw one DM when I was a player just give us not legendary, very rare loot, like anything that we wanted. And it was just like, okay, I'll take a headband of intellect because my intellect is 11.
Right.
Headband of intellect, gave it to me.
I'll have the storm giant belt, sure.
Yep. But what ended up happening is there were a group of 4 players, all fairly power gaming, that were a part of this. And they wanted to run in a dungeon because I talked to them about running in a very hard role-playing session, right? And I promised that I could break them of the power gaminess. And they were like, sure, we'll take it. We can beat anything. So sure. And I put what was it? It was 4 level 5 people. And you were there. You were listening in. You weren't playing, but you were listening in when this happened. I put 4 level 5 players up against a room filled with mind flayers. And
yeah.
And one of the, I forget what the elder mind flayers are. There's the elder brains, which I had one in the room. And then there were 4 mind flayers. And then there was the one mind flayer kind of
the big
organizer,
boy.
The big boy, right?
Yeah.
And basically I had told them with an NPC before they went into this room, hey, if you go into this room, you have to leave. There's a way to leave, and this is how you do it. If you stay and fight, you will die. And the first guy walks in and starts mouthing off, and I hit him with, it wasn't Ray of Enfeeblement. It was, I think it was Feeble Mind, and just melted his intelligence down to 2, where intelligence was one of his biggest stats.
Yeah, that was.
And
yeah.
And there's a reason why I did this, because all of a sudden it changed the tone of that session where the players stopped looking at their papers, they looked at each other, and then they looked at the map and they said, how do we get out of here? And they started talking to each other, and they started formulating a plan, and they started figuring out how they could work together instead of individually to get out of the situation, rather than just bash their heads and axes into the mind flayers until they were all dead.
Aw, they got the fear of God in them. That's so nice.
And they all barely survived. It was great. It was a good time. And they all had a ton of fun. And this won't work for everybody, but it is a suggestion. Sometimes, if you have power gamers that are really drunk on the power gaming thing, throw something at them they can't beat. Like literally something that is like, hey, I'm telling you guys right before you do this, like mathematically, if you beat this, it will be out of sheer luck. That you rolled too many 20s and I will have rolled too many ones, right?
Right.
That's one way that you can deal with some of this is just...
Yeah, that is one way to, I guess, just give them the brick wall and make sure that having Superman fly away from a problem is at least an interesting development for the Superman.
Yeah.
And like you said, it forced them to actually roleplay and talk to each other, which is nice.
Yeah, it is. Something else that I have seen, though, that is nice is, we're going to say it again, communication. The DM talking to the player and saying, hey, like, what's your deal? What do you want to do? Tyler, the guy who I was talking about at the beginning of the episode, great guy. I love him, right? A little bit of a power gamer, but that's okay. I talked to Tyler about like, hey, what do you want to do? What's the goal with your character? What do you want to do combat-wise, roleplay-wise? What is that shtick for you? How are you going to be happy? And he talked about, well, I'd like to do this. I'm an Aarakocra, so I'd like to fly around. I'm an Aarakocra monk. I've got this thing that I saw that's kind of exciting where I could pick up these, boulders. Now that we have a bag of holding, they basically fly up 120 feet into the air and I drop these boulders on people and, kill them that way. I was like, okay, like that's good to know. Can you do me a favor and can you just make sure that the party knows that's kind of going to be your role, right? That's kind of the thing that you're doing. And can you just make sure that when you're doing this, that other people get to do their things and ask other people how they get to do their things. Now, Tyler, who's an emotionally intelligent human being, did this and figured out what everyone else was doing and worked those strengths, right? And if you're a power gamer, that's what you need to do. You need to figure out where other people's strengths are and see how your strengths match up with theirs and how you can play your role to maximum effect while letting them play their roles to maximum effect.
Right.
That's an even better way to power game, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, there's a way to, as you said, from a DM's perspective, make sure that they get, whether it's the wrath of God or help them kind of in a direction where they understand where they're at.
Yeah.
There's also a much crueler way to outfox them. I've done that. So I'm going to tell you a story. It's the story of Pop-Tart. Pop-Tart was a power gamer that I had to deal with. I still play with him. He's a very nice man. But Pop-Tart had this thing where Pop-Tart really, really, really wanted the hand and eye of Vecna. He might have watched Critical Role, who knows, but he really wanted those items. So
that's fun.
He was the most broken character at level 3 I've ever seen. He had, his stats were too perfect. He rolled them alone.
Yeah.
And I knew he fudged his rolls.
Yeah.
Right. And I think all the other players knew. And it sown some there was some issue with it.
Sure.
So everyone was like, I don't like that he's doing it. And I'm like, hey guys, it's fine. I'm good. I'll handle it. And I had even one player came up to me. By the way, there's one thing worse than a toxic murder hobo. And it's the guy who comes up to the DM, the rules lawyer, who goes, Mr. DM, I do not believe that he is doing exactly what he should, like a tattletale to a teacher. Oh, I hate that guy. Please, please, please.
Don't be that guy.
If you have an issue with another player, bring it up politely and not like you're trying to worm tongue your way into his death.
Jesus Christ, yes.
But he came up to me and he was like, yes, he is doing something wrong and he needs to be stopped. And I did the whole, listen, I'm God, we'll be fine. You just have fun on your end and I'll try to get him to role play. And if not, we'll see where this goes. Now, the only way he would actually role play is if we were doing the Hand of Vecna side quest. And he was trying to force his party into making that the main quest, to the point where he was even willing to PvP party members to make sure they went in the right direction. And he was strong enough to make that happen, right? And I was like, well, that's a little much. So I decided to do a bit of a Bugs Bunny. I gave him what he wanted. So they went to a tomb. They fight a big lich. They level up a ton. They do the pomp and circumstance. They're killing things. Everyone's having fun. It's a fun dungeon. And he is ecstatic. The Iron Hand. The Iron Hand of Vecna.
Yeah.
I'm going to get it.
Oh, boy.
They go to the chamber. They get it. The party is a little bit like, I wonder who gets what. I wonder who gets what. Pop-Tart goes, I get both. And, and they're like, I'd rather you didn't. And then I made the hand do like a creepy thing, like I choose you, Pop-Tart. And they're like, well, the hand chose him. So if he gets the hand pick.
Right.
And then I kept looking at him. I'm like, well, the eye picked. So I let the party members go off. I made a big bag of loot outside. So they're going through all this different loot. And he's like, I will take none of that epic loot. I will have the hand of Vecna and the eye of Vecna, and I will put it in. So he starts doing the thing, right? He's just stabbing himself, cutting things off, taking a lot of damage, right? But he can spare it. Yeah. Puts on the hand, puts on the eye. Now, the hand and eye both have this thing.
I have a feeling to know where this is going.
Where if you don't succeed at yada yada, you are basically controlled by Vecna, right? Mm-hmm. And I said, well, he gets both at the same time. That's clearly makes the save a lot harder.
Oh, no.
Like it's the same time.
Rip.
So
Rip Pop-Tart.
So
he was a tasty pastry.
Yeah. So now, by the way, Vecna flavored Pop-Tarts is going to be delicious and it's going to be a new merch. Anyways, he puts it on and then Vecna starts basically, I don't like controlling my characters outright.
Yeah, good man.
But I keep telling him that you have to do this, and he feels compelled to do something. And he really didn't like the fact that a magic item was telling me what to do. So what ended up happening was his party had to essentially fight him, superpower gamer guy.
Yeah. And
he realized, oh my God, I'm too strong for the actual party I'm fighting. They're not going to be able to stop me. I've bamboozled myself. So that was like a genuine fear. Like he was literally just talking, just like, oh my God, I can't believe I made this thing so broken. Oh my God, I'm not going to get this character back. Oh my God. So he was like, ah! And they eventually put him down, take the things out of him, throw it away. And now handless, eyeless, now humble, sets up and he goes, hey guys, who else wants to destroy these fucking things? And they're like, we do. And that started a new campaign where he role played like a ton.
Cool.
And he has yet to make another power gaming character since, because I scared him so much.
Yes.
So there is a way.
No.
There is a way. There is a way to get people out of that. Now, you don't always want to do that if, like you said, for your friend Tyler isn't Pop-Tart. If Tyler is not toxic and you can actually talk to Tyler, then in the grand scheme of things, you will be able to actually get something done that is productive. Mm-hmm. But if you know that the only way for you to stop a very toxic player from really power gaming and hurting things, my suggestion is you that big old brain of yours, and don't be aggressive with it. I do think what you did was probably the right thing to do for that group. However, I do know a lot of DMs that go, I threw the big thing at you and now you're dead. And that it's really aggressive. It's targeting someone. It's not smart. It's very unintelligent if you just do it that way. Yeah. And you don't have a goal in mind. You had a goal in mind. You used the right spell. You were trying to actually force this party to escape. You gave them a map. But I know a lot of people that just go, I threw the Tarask at the person I don't like. They're dead now. Well, that's just the game, right? Ha ha ha. Like, I hate that. Yeah. And I see that a lot. And that's the thing to avoid. Yeah. There's only one thing I want to mention after this, but keep going.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, and, along that, I think that it also involves like, you have two paths and either path leads to the same location. Like, that's sort of okay. But when you have, I literally have a railroad for everything. There is no chance for you getting off of this path. And if you do get off this path, there are Tarasks and dinosaurs and all sorts of things that are going to eat you when you're level 3 waiting for you. And that's just like, you can't do that. You need to allow your party to have a certain amount of freedom in decision making. I'm not saying make your planning hard by planning for every single outcome, but if you only plan for one thing and you feel the need to correct your party when they make a decision, that's not going to be fun for them. And that's power gaming for you.
Right.
Another thing that I see for DMs is when they do the thing of like, they know too much about the party. Like they study their party and they're able to circumvent every single weakness. So I try to plan my encounters where I have a couple of things that will challenge them, right?
Right.
And unless if the bad guys have had several interactions with the party, they're not going to have a contingency for every single ability that the party has. I might be able to deal with Tyler's flying Aarakocra by having a caster that can cast web on him, but I'm probably not going to have a contingency plan for the rocks that he's dropping on people, or for the new ability that the paladin just got, or for those spells that the wizards just picked up.
Exactly. And also, I do want to add to that. I think when you're building an encounter that you are trying to challenge players to, doing your research and knowing your players is how you build a good encounter.
Yes.
The little challenge rating score at the bottom isn't.
Right.
So I do believe there's a certain amount of research, but if you, what's your intent for the encounter? Are you trying to have your players struggle and then achieve something? Cool.
Yeah.
But if you Corona. But if you're trying to just hurt them, if you're just trying to be Dark Souls about it, no From stuff. I'm sorry, it's not what you're supposed to be doing.
Yep.
Now, there is something I do want to mention because I know we're winding down a little bit, but this is a power game thing that is, I guess, our next episode we might do about player types.
Sure.
It bleeds into the metagamers, the metagame crowd.
Yeah.
Because, by the way, no one is just one thing. Of course not. Your playstyle is elaborate and weird and strange because you're elaborate and weird and strange.
Yeah.
But power gamers have this tendency to metagame sometimes. And metagaming is just having knowledge that your character normally wouldn't because you are a player and you've probably read the monster manual.
Yeah.
Here is something that I kind of despise. Tiny bit, is, do you know anything about hockey at all?
I do.
Okay. Do you know when a player chirps, whether it's trash talk or trying to get the puck, it's when they're skating around it, they chirp, they yell some small thing out, right? Chirping.
Yep.
It's a very hockey thing.
Yeah.
And that happens in encounters where you'll have a player on their turn and they're about to do something. And I'm okay with players coming over to another player to help them about what they should use for a turn. If they're a new player, that makes sense. That's fine. I don't like it when you're fighting a Hydra and one of the other players, his character would never know this, goes, use fire on the heads. That makes sense. Like he didn't do a check, just nothing.
Right.
He just says the thing. And now you have a weird position as a DM. You either tell people ignore him and figure out fire on your own despite you already know it, or you just let it happen. And it's usually the latter, but that cheapens the deal.
Yeah.
So there's this strange issue where you're just going back and forth on how to handle it. And it's usually because of chirping. I've had players do that for Hydras, trolls, beholders, where people are just like, avoid the middle eye beam, or you'll have dragons. People are like, try to do their underside, or hey, put the person who's resistant to lightning up front or has a resistance because of that one magic item. It's a blue dragon and their character wouldn't know. There's a lot of things like that. Or they see a rust monster and they scream rust monster. Everybody put your swords away. There's things like that where it's metagaming, but it falls under power gaming a little bit just because power gamers do it a lot because they're power gaming. Yeah. And it's chirping. It really is like hockey where they're in an encounter and they're just like, oh, Hydra.
Yeah. And I definitely want to talk about metagaming sometime because I think that there's a certain way to handle metagaming. I think there's a certain amount of metagaming that is actually good for Dungeons & Dragons and playing the game. But I do really agree with you that chirping, as we could call that, is a really negative thing because it feels like you're just grabbing and ripping out some of the discovery and some of the intensity and some of the puzzle solving that goes into combat when one person's just like, oh yeah, use fire on the troll, then they won't regenerate, right? There's something, and if you want to, if you do this, right, and you want to fix this, probably the best way that you can do this is say to the DM, I think I know something about this monster that would help me fight it, but I'm not sure if my character knows it. And then a good DM will usually say, all right,
Shut
roll,
up. Oh.
roll an X check for that, right? And then you roll an X check, and then it's like, okay, so you would know that, this monster is undead by nature. So if you're thinking of using kind of more divine magic on it, that would be potent in fighting it. That's an effective thing to do, right? But if you're fighting an undead thing and you've never seen undead before, and you're like, oh, obviously I throw some radiant damage at this because it's an undead thing. It's like, no, that's a power gaming sort of meta move.
Unless your character has been hunting undead or something. Like there's
caveats to it.
There's that always caveats. But like, for instance, there's always that magic of a new player when they come across a new monster and they're just stupid about it. Like just absolutely dumb. It's magical. And I know veteran players who try to replicate that, but there's something really nice when you're dealing with, let's say, a new player or even a player who isn't new, but they don't like tear through the monster manual because they know they're a player. And you'll be talking to them and you'll throw something out and they're like, what the fuck is this? And they're just looking at everybody, and everybody might know, but they're just like, it's doing that. Can you believe that? I've got a player like that in my campaign. He's actually the editor goblin's character.
Oh.
Berg.
Yeah.
Berg Ferger, the guppy salesman.
Berg Ferger? Is that what it is?
Ferger, I believe.
Ferger?
He's a little halfling. He sells guppies.
Berg Ferger, the Gerber's
But in every encounter with a monster, our editor goblin, who doesn't just tear through the monster manual on a daily, will be like, that was a really cool encounter. I didn't know what the fuck that was. And we're like, cool, man. Yeah, And part of it is because he's a stupid goblin and needs to work harder.
Right.
But yeah, so he's gonna hurt me. But there's that kind of niceness in it. And I also have a veteran player in that party who is really good at playing characters, despite the fact that he's fought everything 1,000 times. He's been playing longer than I have, but he's really wise to the fact that when he rolls up on, let's say, another demon, his character who doesn't know anything about demons will go, what is this? Oh, that's so horrible. That's more fun to me. I just don't like it when you have that chirping, essentially, where some fiend has arrived and the other players are just like, don't use fire on it, or something.
Right. Yeah.
It's a fiend, or, it's a Nothic. Don't look at its eye or something. It's just, ugh.
I personally, when something like that happens, sometimes I'll just switch out what it is, right? Like, oh, this meta gamer and this power gamer just chirped to attack it with fire because, it kills its regeneration. I'm just going to change that to cold damage.
Yeah, it's a variant troll.
And just, like make it immune to fire damage.
Right. Like there's a way to do it where you're like cackling to yourself because again, what you just said, that casual, I'm the DM, I'm not that worried, is a really good attitude to have. You are in charge of this thing. Dude, if at any point things get too scary, you could summon Death Knights. What are you talking about? Why are you being a baby right now? Stop being a baby.
Absolutely.
You're fine. And I like chirping as a term. I feel like that's a very good description of when that form of metagame happens.
I will probably actually use that now that when I'm writing my like player packets and stuff for campaigns, I'll probably mention that, like, hey, please don't, chirp and use that terminology. I really like that.
Yeah. Well, and also I just wanted to mention that quickly just because I know there's that bleed between Murder Hobo and Power Gamer and Metagamer, like and Rules Lawyer, like they all kind of mix and match depending on who you're talking to, and they bleed over. Because, by the way, metagamers can also absolutely be rules lawyers who just can't shut up. Like those guys or lore crazed people who are just can't stop dripping with what's happening and the fucking D&D yada yada. Like and it hurts an encounter, especially because at no point when, in Lord of the Rings, when they're fighting a troll and the troll comes in and starts bashing heads, does anyone scream out just like, has anybody considered using radiant damage? I'm pretty sure he's weak to that. Like, and it just would break the scene. You shouldn't do that. You should try your best.
And I think that's the ultimate thing with this, right? Is that, and we can talk about murder hobos and we can talk about rules lawyers some other time. I think we're just about out of time here, but like, I think ultimately, if you're considerate to the other players at the table and you're not just shouting things out, if that's not acceptable at your table, just be considerate of what your other players are doing and make sure that they're having fun. And make yourself powerful, right? Have fun with that. But like, give other people time to shine. Don't overshadow other people, and just have fun with it. Like, have fun in some of the mystery and kind of some of the confusion.
That's part of the game, that unexpected unknowingness. Now, I think at the end of the day, like I said, power gamers have a low communication. That'll be well. I want to just do a few housekeeping things if you're good for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. In that regards, we are on all the social media platforms, so go check us out.
All the social medias.
Oh my God, all of them. Praise Vecna. But just go to any of our social medias, just look up our name, DumpStat. You'll be able to find a lot. I think we have like closing on like 20 episodes in the archive. So tear through them, dude. Go through it. See what we've got. Yep. We have a lovely long series on clerics. We have how to run series. We have an episode on goblins, on original characters, on fudging dice, on the ultimate dump stat. If you want to listen to episode 2, we just have a lot of cool stuff coming from our end. We're also in the future trying to create collaborations and trying to work with other cool people. So please look out for that. Like, share, subscribe. Downloading the episodes helps us immensely. That really does.
It does.
Subscribing also helps. So if you could do those things, I'd be happy, and you want to see me happy. Past that, the only other thing is we were probably going to have a voting happen on our group, D&D Bedtime Stories, soon. We're polling people for what episodes we want to see next. So if you want your voice heard and you want to make sure we directly hear it, either message us on one of our social media platforms or vote on those polls. If you're just like, bruh, we need that Nothix episode, guess what? You're going to have to vote for it, buddy, or suggest it. So, get a couple of friends. And if you've got a person who's new into D&D, share it. We'll hold them.
Absolutely.
We'll touch them up. They'll learn some things. Not a lot, but they'll learn some things.
Yeah. And if you've liked something from any of the episodes, feel free to send us a message either in the group or even on any of our social media pages. Because I love shouting people out. I love hearing what people are thinking of after they listen to our podcasts. And I love people throwing ideas at us. So, I'll occasionally shout people out. And who knows, if you have a question or something, maybe we'll even have a discussion about it.
Oh, I forgot. There is actually someone that I'm supposed to do a shout out for. It is a Mr. Alex Jones from InfoWars.
No.
No.
Wait, no.
He's a big fan.
No. Listen, hey, buddy, you're a great lich, great guy. How about you go back over there and keep doing your manicure? I'm going to keep wiggling myself out of these chains here and seeing if I can get out.
Black helicopters. Okay. All right. We'll see everybody next episode. We'll talk to you later. Thanks, goodbye. Doc. Bye-bye.
You've just been listening to DumpStat, a podcast presented by Horizon Kingdoms. Horizon Kingdoms is a Dungeons & Dragons 5th edition server that's free to play. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and join up on Discord to join in on a new adventure. For more DumpStat, be sure to find us on your favorite podcast platform and subscribe.